Hello again and welcome to Woosha Wisdom, in which we look at various counseling related issues. Till now we've been looking at how we can use our negative emotions to bring change and growth to ourselves. We've been saying that behind those negative emotions there is an unconscious goal that derives from a legitimate need. And when we experience that negative emotion, it's like a light on the dashboard. There's a light that comes on, a signal, if you like, that comes on that says that there's something at work beneath it. And a tool that we can use is to say, what's the unconscious goal that is at work in here? We say that when we get angry, it's because a goal is being blocked. When we're anxious, it's because there's an uncertain goal. When we get depressed, when we have despair, when that goal is unreachable. And we feel very guilty when we feel like we've missed a goal. And very often those goals really shouldn't be goals. And if you'd like to learn more about this, please look at some previous episodes of this Woosha Wisdom. I want to now turn our attention to another very useful tool. So those negative emotions are like lights on the dashboard. They are clues to those unconscious goals, but they're also clues to our thinking. And when what we are saying to ourselves, when what we are believing or what we are thinking is wrong or distorted, then what we feel will be distorted, will be exaggerated or unnecessary. And so let me take as an example, if I'm invited to a business meeting, and as I think about that meeting, I think I am the least experienced there. Those group of people are all very experienced. They know much more than me. I feel so inferior amongst them. Now, if that's what I'm saying to myself, then I'm going to feel very anxious about that meeting. However, if I was to change what I was thinking to something like, I might not be as experienced as the others in that meeting, but I do have an area of expertise. I do know something about some aspect of what we're talking about, and I can make a contribution that's going to make an enormous amount of difference to how I feel about that meeting, to my confidence going into that meeting. And so this tool can be very useful. This was popularized, if you like, by Albert Ellis when he developed what's called the ABC theory. The ABC is alliteration for A is the activating event, the thing that happened. B is what we believe about that event, and C is the consequent emotion. And really the theory says, and I think it's very true, that what we feel might be triggered by an event, might be triggered by something that's happened, but it's not really because of that event, it's really our perception of that event. And if our perception, if our thinking, if what we are saying to ourselves is distorted or plain wrong, then what we feel is going to be distorted or unnecessary. Let me give you another example. If you can imagine two groups of people climbing this mountain. One group is a group of tourists, and they've decided of their own volition that they're going to explore this mountain, pick up the challenge of climbing up this mountain. There's another group of people also climbing the mountain, exactly the same mountain, but they are workers, and they've been told to put a beacon on top of the mountain. The group of tourists are saying, wow, isn't this a fantastic experience? Aren't we lucky to be on this mountain? Look at those views. It's so good to be here. The workers, on the other hand, are saying, why on earth are we trudging up this mountain? Do we have to be here? I could be doing something so much better. Now, they're doing the same thing. The event is exactly the same. They're both climbing up this mountain. They're probably carrying the same amount of weight. But what they feel will be very different, only because what they're saying to themselves is different, only because their perspective of that event is different. The tourists are just delighted to be there. They're exhilarated, they're enthusiastic. The bunch of workers are feeling lethargic and down in the dumps that they are being made to go up this mountain. So it illustrates the point that it's not the event itself that affects our feeling, it's what we think about that event that affects our feeling. So let me give you a couple of examples. I knew a young lady who had this amazing, terrible fear of traveling on our commuters, our taxis. she used to have to travel from the suburbs into town. And she was terribly afraid and nervous of getting on those commuters. And so the event was traveling on a commuter. The emotion, the light on the dashboard, was this anxiety, this fear. And when we explored what she was saying to herself, really what she was saying is the chances of me having an accident if I get on that commuter are probably about 95%. She was convinced that just about every time she got on the commuter it was going to have an accident. Well, obviously her thinking was distorted. It was wrong. If she changed her thinking and realized that actually the chances of her having an accident are probably in the region of 0.5%, she would immediately, and she believed that, she would immediately feel much more relaxed and confident to get onto that commuter. So the activating event would remain the same, getting on a commuter to go into town. The belief about the event would change, maybe 5% chance of having an accident or 0.5% of a chance to having an accident. Immediately there would be a different emotion evoked by that event. What about if, and this happens to me, when things go wrong? I've had to work on this myself. When things go wrong, maybe the gate motor breaks or the car breaks down or the geyser leaks and there's spreading water on the ceiling. And so that's the event, things going wrong. And that used to frustrate me, used to get really frustrated about those things. And when I asked myself, what am I saying to myself about those events? It was, this is terrible. This is a disaster. This is upsetting my whole day. And of course, it's not nice when those things happen. It's not pleasant. It does disrupt my plans. But what I've had to learn to do is to say, well, I don't like the fact that this thing has broken down, but you know what? God knew it was going to happen. And while my plans have been disrupted, He has His plans, and I need to trust those. So if I change my thinking, it immediately alleviates to some degree what I'm feeling about that event. Let's take another example. If you are invited to a social gathering and you feel, your perception is that you have been ignored, and so you leave feeling despondent, you leave feeling sad, you leave feeling rather low or depressed. And so the event is a social gathering in which you feel like you've been ignored, and what you're feeling, the light on the dashboard, is that low feeling, slightly depressed. What are you saying to yourself? And maybe you're saying something like this: it's terrible if people don't like me. For me to be happy, people must like me. Well, that makes us a victim. It imprisons us. It makes us dependent on what other people think and how they react. And it's just not true. My happiness doesn't depend on them. And so if I changed it to, it's not very nice if people don't like me, but you know what? My happiness depends on knowing that God, my Father, loves me with an unfailing love. And immediately you see what I'm saying to myself is different, and therefore what I'm feeling will be different. So I hope that makes sense. This ABC can be such a useful tool. And the way we use it is not quite in the order of A, B, C, because the thing that makes us aware of our faulty thinking is what we're feeling. So we really start with the C, and that C is the emotion, the consequent emotion. It's that light on the dashboard that says there's something going on here, and I need to ask myself, what's beneath this emotion? And I need to understand the A, what's triggering that, what's the event that's triggering that emotion. And then thirdly, B, what am I believing about that event? What am I saying to myself about that event? What am I thinking, and is it true? Now, sometimes what we're saying to ourselves is true. Sometimes things are sad. Sometimes things should make us angry. Sometimes things do cause concern. But it's when our thinking is distorted, out of proportion, or plain wrong, that what we are experiencing actually is unnecessary or exaggerated. And this is a great tool to get in touch with some of that unconscious thinking. We call them automatic unconscious thoughts. Those thoughts that are, we're in the habit of thinking. And this is a tool that we can use to get in touch with some of that wrong thinking and to change it. Change it to something that is true, and then our emotion is in proportion to the event, to the truth of that event. I hope that helps. We'll see you next time.